Welcome back. If you're watching the crazy lamestream media, MSLSD and all these other, criminal organizations that are programming our mind to believe, not believe what we see, believe what they tell us. Okay, it's happening all over the place. You're hearing day and night now about the U.S. Postal Service and how Donald Trump is using the Postal Service and he's going to disenfranchise minority voters. It's all crap. Okay, it's just the newest distraction. And the reason they're distracting is because if you go back when I was just talking about going back and looking at the polls in 2016 where they said Trump can't win. But if you go back to a time where Trump was saying they tapped my wires at Trump Tower, and the whole left-wing media was laughing at him saying, oh, we don't tap wires anymore, and who does wiretaps and all this other stuff. Turns out they were tapping and spying on Donald Trump, and the first carcass has been dragged to the forefront now. And to talk about it and break it down, legal analyst John O'Connor joins us. He's the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and began today's partisan advocacy journalism. It's crazy, John. It's just absolutely crazy what they are, feeding to the general population as news. It's really propaganda, if you ask me. But we did get a guilty plea, and I didn't see a lot of media talking about it.
Well, yeah, John. I mean, think about that guilty plea. My question is, at least as to that guilty plea, which is sort of the end of the FISA process, the acts, was he the only guy that knew about that? Did he just do it all by himself in the loneliness of his bedroom someplace, or were other people involved? We don't know that. There's been a very tight seal around what Clinesmith has told us, but it's really the tip of the iceberg. When you read Horowitz's report, the IG's report, which of course was not done in prosecutorial style, but the facts it laid out were devastating. And of course, the media doesn't pick up on those. But the amount of information that the FBI clearly had that it did not tell the FISA court is stunning. It's chilling. In essence, it's lying. One of the things the FBI always prosecutes is crimes of concealment. People from Enron are in jail because they concealed a couple things, not because they made misstatements.
So let me ask you this: this guy Kevin Clinesmith, okay? He's a low-ranking, kind of junior attorney over at the FBI, right? Not so high on the chain. Would a guy in your professional experience, a guy in the mid-level, young man trying to make a career for himself, what do you think the odds are that he went in and changed an email and lied to his supervisors and superiors just on his own free will?
Well, it's just highly unlikely. Remember this, he was doing this because it was considered crucial to make sure that it looked like Carter Page was this terrible guy, whereas all the information they had was he was a very cooperative, patriotic guy. The Russians had tried to get him before. So this was a key component when he changed that email. Now, is it likely that he did not consult with his supervisors before he did this? Is it likely that he didn't at least do it and say, hey, give me a gold star, I just did this? He's not going to hang out there by himself, and it's not for himself that he was doing this. He was doing this for his team of anti-Trump people in the FBI. So I find it hard to believe that other people not only didn't know about it, but wouldn't have authorized it.
Yeah, you know what, man? I'll tell you what. If they feed us this one low-level lawyer and say he was the whole thing, I'm looking at it like this. I'm no lawyer, but I do remember, like from 8th grade, we learned, in some ethics and legal classes, the term "fruit of the poisonous tree." If any of that is true, then when I look at this whole thing, the whole FISA process that opened the door, and they got these 2 hop warrants. People don't know about this. They got 2 hop warrants where not only could they spy on Carter Page, but they could spy on any of his contacts and then any of those contacts. So they had like an exponential warrant where they can listen to everyone, including Donald Trump.
Well, that's right. They were hoping to listen to Donald Trump. We still don't know whether they did, but you're right. You get at least 2 hops, and you know the Obama people had always contended you get 3 hops. They wanted 3 hops. Now, we don't know if they used 3 hops or not, but for the viewers, if Carter Page talks to Steve Bannon, that's 1 hop. Now you can surveil Steve Bannon. If Steve Bannon talks to Trump, now you can surveil Trump. Or Bannon talks to Corey Lewandowski, can surveil Corey Lewandowski. So that 2 hop, and I think the Obamas were using a 3 hop system. So it's very scary. They could get transparency into everybody. And remember, Carter Page quit the campaign on September 25 before the first warrant was even issued. So this really had nothing to do with Carter Page. It had to do with just some excuse to be able to spy on the Trump campaign and hopefully catch them in some dirty deed of some kind.
Now, even with all of that chicanery, the Robert Mueller report comes out, and the key thing that'll always stick with me, he said they have no evidence of not one American colluding with Russia. So I always feel like, man, I'm a law-abiding citizen, I'm a hard worker, but if the FBI was listening to my phone calls because they wanted to get me on something, they'd probably find something in there to get me on. They had all this, these 2 hops, these 3 hops, unmasking fake things. They still came up with nothing on Trump. So there has to be some nefarious plan behind this.
Well, yeah. I mean, the first plan was to just catch Trump at something and hopefully derail the election. Now, it got delayed a bit, and they really didn't get the warrants until right before the election. But they're hoping to find something. Once he got elected, which they did not anticipate, now it became ever more important for them to get Trump. And you notice that they never told Trump about the FISA warrants, even though he's in this position called president or commander-in-chief. This was his investigation. It should have been. It's a counterintelligence investigation. And yet they hid that from him. So that is pretty mind-boggling.
That's crazy. And I'll tell you this. One of my good friends, mentor of mine, former CEO of Overstock.com, Dr. Patrick Byrne, he was kind of one of these, off-the-books academics that they use to kind of make donations to organizations and see if they can infiltrate a little and see if they smell anything. He had come out and said that he had got brought on board to take a look at Hillary Clinton's organization colluding with Russia. And then it spiraled out of control into this. There's word out of the White House now that the FBI gave Clinton's team a defensive briefing. Hey, we think there's some Russians trying to collude with you guys. Watch out. And at the same time, they didn't do that to Trump, even when he was, elected. And they did the opposite. They opened an investigation into him. So that, to me, looks like sinister.
Well, the point is, not only did they not give a defensive briefing to the Trump campaign, which they should have, and they gave to Hillary, they also didn't give him one to him as president when he's actually, under the Constitution, in control of the investigation. They hid it from the guy who's in charge of it. Now, going back to your idea about colluding with Russia, let's think about this. Hillary Clinton's through Christopher Steele, they knew that they were trying to get information from Kremlin sources. And they've got this subsource named Danchenko, who supposedly was connected and so forth. But the point is, if you really look at this, and if you believe the Steele report, they were colluding with Russia to affect the election.
Right.
They were trying to get information from Russian Kremlin sources, all to bolster their concept of interfering with the election. Remember, they tried to leak all this before they even got the warrant. They leaked all the Russian stuff to Harry Reid. They leaked it to Yahoo News. They leaked it to all kinds
John McCain.
Right. That's why Carter Page resigned, was because I think it was a New York Times article. It might have been Yahoo News, but there were 2 or 3 articles around September 23rd, 2016. And Page said, hey, I'm not a spy. I'm not a bad guy, but I'm going to resign. So that was because of all the publicity.
Right.
So you talk about colluding with the Russians in order to affect the election. It's precisely what Hillary Clinton and the DNC was doing.
Yep.
And by
And
the
I
way,
have to tell you that from some of my sources, I think that's going to come out in this whole Durham report. So we're going to have to get you back on. We're out of time. But John
Yep.
O'Connor, great legal analyst, been with us before. He's the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. John, thank you so much. Really appreciate your wisdom.
great being with you.
We'll
Got
take
a great
break. Thank you, man. We'll take a quick break and come back with more Liquid Lunch news of the day right after this.